talking to H.D. Moore, who is the original architect and father of Metasploit. So practically every researcher in the world is already familiar with HD's work. But now HD is on to a new project. So HD, tell us about Rumble.
So over the last 20 years, every security product I've built, the first step has been network discovery. And network discovery is great. There's lots of really cool, neat things you can do, but no one really gets enough time to focus on it and do it well, because the goal isn't network discovery usually. The goal is to do something else, whether it's vulnerability scanning, exploitation, network monitoring, something else. The idea behind Rumble is let's focus on just network discovery and just asset inventory, and that's it. Using all the same techniques that we use for unauthenticated vulnerability scanning, but applying that to asset identification.
So I don't get it. We've been doing asset discovery and inventorying for more than 20 years in this space. Why do we need something new now?
That's the thing is like as our networks have changed, as we've gone to more micro-segmentation, more desktop hardening, more IoT, more unmanaged devices on our corporate networks, your standard asset inventory tools stopped working. Most of them are based on credentials, using WMI, using SMP, things like that. And as we kind of move forward to more and more of these unmanaged devices, existing management tools just don't work anymore. So we're taking kind of the old school approach of active scanning. Instead of doing like passive analysis or pulling tap ports, you can drop an agent anywhere in your environment, use that agent to scan everything from any point, any perspective. And then because of all the research we do in the Rumble product, you can identify and inventory things even when there's desktop hardening and lockdown devices, unmanaged devices.
Cool. And is the problem for you in the research side fingerprinting and discovering all of those different types of assets? Because there's a lot of devices nowadays.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a fire hose, but it's what we love, and it's why we started the company. Like, I enjoy digging into fingerprints for 12 hours straight. It's kind of my jam. So I enjoy kind of going in and trying to figure out how to classify an entire new vertical of devices, whether it's medical devices, energy, transmission, or banking applications, and everything in between.
How do you get samples of those devices to query in the first place?
I started off with doing a lot of internet scanning, both in my previous job and then kind of early like late 90s, early 2000s. So we take the same approach for internet-wide data sampling and apply that to the beta that we ran last year. We had about 3,000 beta customers that all provided data for us to use. We directly data mine our customers' data to help improve our fingerprints across all of their products. And that data is not getting shared anywhere, of course, but we are using that to build the best possible fingerprints across environments that have generally not seen a lot of visibility until now.
So somebody might say, hey, the monitor on our diesel engine on our ship isn't showing up on your scan, and then you work with them until you can figure out what it looks like.
Exactly. And we work with lots of different verticals on that. They'll come in and say, wow, you didn't catch half these backnet devices, or you didn't catch half of these specific types of routers we use in our industry. We're like, great, we sit down, we dig through all the data, we find ways to uniquely fingerprint them. We find attributes of the devices that are really important to their business, whether that's a backnet ID for building automation, whether that's an attribute about the location on SMP, whatever that field is that they really care about for network management, find ways to express those fields in the UI and expose all that stuff for queries. And then we just build fingerprints and deliver and deploy it.
So what's the security play here? We know that you should know what's on your network, but how does that integrate with your complete risk management project, I guess?
There's really like 5 areas we see folks dig into it. One is the initial visibility. You get much better visibility with Rumble than you do with like a vulnerability scanning tool, because you can scan a much wider range of stuff, and Rumble will tell you when you miss something. It'll find subnets that weren't covered in the scan. It'll find multi-home devices. It'll find topologies that may not be obvious through accidental multi-home device connections. And then kind of going down from there, we have folks using it for policy and compliance. You can create queries that tell you exactly when a device is out of compliance, which ones they are, and when they showed up. You can use it for security investigations work, for identifying what is this device, when did it join the network, what is it running, when did it go away, all that stuff. We also have people using it for change monitoring, so alerting when anything does change in the network. And finally, we have folks integrating Rumble output into every other product out there, whether it's their SIM, whether it's Splunk, whether it's their CMDB, other inventory tools, so that we can help create the single source of truth of what's on the network.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the integration with all the other tools, because everybody's been investing in vulnerability management, patch management, fixing, etc. How does this start the process and get into those tools?
The easy mode is anytime someone has a vulnerability management infrastructure already in place, they can drop an agent on the same system, run the same scans, and get much quicker results, much quicker inventory. So we have a lot of customers now who are pre-scanning the network with Rumble and then feeding that data back into their vulnerability scanning systems. And they get much better results because they don't have to scan quite as much with the vuln scanners. The vuln scanners usually have discovery modes. They're not quite as highly tuned as Rumble is for speed or for detection or for device identification at that level. So we have a lot of folks who are using it to improve their vulnerability management by getting a much wider view of what's on the network and then feeding that into their vulnerability management tools.
And I assume those 3,000 beta trials, you got a lot of reaction like, wow, this showed 30% more than we thought we had. Do you have a feel in your head maybe for the percent increase in devices discovered that you usually run into?
I think you're close. I mean, it's around 30 to 40% difference of what people see in their vulnerability management tools and then what they see after running Rumble. And that's often because we identify things that vuln scanners can't, and we scan ranges that you really don't want to run a vulnerability scanner against.
Right, right. And then are there, particular areas of devices that haven't been looked at in the past that you're discovering?
Absolutely. There's a ton of stuff out there that has very little coverage in any vuln scanning tool. We're not really a vulnerability scanner, but we often get used kind of in a similar way as an asset inventory tool for most organizations. And so everything from consumer devices to BACnet, building control systems, also clinical and medical devices, energy transmission systems. We get pulled into a lot of different verticals by our customers who say, we want to know what all these things are. And so we just look at the data, dive into it, and figure out the best way to fingerprint as much as we possibly can.
Wow. And where would people get started if they want to jump onto this today?
We have 21-day free trials, and you can get started by starting the trial at rumble.run. We also have a ton of blog posts about the research we do that's part of the fingerprinting process. We do the same level of effort for writing our fingerprints and doing our research that you would see in a vulnerability scanner, doing pre-authenticated scanning. We just use the results for asset identification, not for vulnerabilities.
Cool. Do you have what happens when you've got, you found something, but you've never seen it before? How do you, it's kind of the reverse of the other problem of finding a signature for something. How do you backtrack and do the sleuth work to figure out what you just found?
Either our customers will figure out what it is and they'll tag the device in the UI and they could submit a fingerprint back to us. Or they just reach out and say, hey, we got 30 things. We think they're this. We don't know what they are. Help. And we jump in and help out. So as part of our support backend, we do a lot of investigative work trying to help customers figure out what they have. And if we can identify something new, we make sure that we then identify it accurately going forward.
I got to ask, since I'm the analyst in me, when will you know when you've got 99% of all devices in the world?
I'm pretty sure I'll never get there. I'm shooting for like 80% is probably like a good target. There's so much new stuff coming out so often that I don't think we'll ever catch up. And
right.
That's really the challenge of the space. Unless you can quickly add covered community devices as they're being deployed, you're never going to keep up anymore. And I feel like that's the challenge. That's why most tools don't do unauthenticated scanning and most tools don't do asset inventory for unmanaged devices at all. It's really hard and it's a fire to just keep up with. But we feel like the way we built the product, the way we do our research, we're kind of uniquely positioned to do a good job there.
Yeah. And what's the next phase for you as a company in developing the product?
Well, we've got about 100 customers so far and things are kind of going well. We're only about 6 months out the gate from commercial launch at this point. So we're just kind of still getting our feelers out there to figure out what customers care about, what they want to see in the product. We're working with some of our bigger customers, folks with like 1 million assets, all the way down to customers with really small networks, between 100 and 300 assets. I'm trying to figure out what do they care about, what do they need, what stuff do they want to see in the UI, what protocols are more important to them, what devices are more important. So we're trying to get a feel for all that. And I feel like we've got a pretty good handle on supporting our early adopter base. Now we're looking at how can we kind of bring this to a much wider market.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, HT. This has been very educational, and we'll check in with you later.
Cool. Thanks, Richard.